Hey everyone, welcome to episode 22 of the Cathode Ray Podcast. We're back on the Zez Retro channel. If you've been watching Zez Retro and you're like, wait, where's 21? 21's missing. We did a shorter episode just now over on Steve's main Retro Tech channel because we wanted to talk about some of the exciting new projects that Steve's got coming up. He's doing this cool work to do CRT preservation for museums. And we wanted to sort of bust that down. And if you've listened to 21 and you listen to 22, you'll probably find like, we've taken a breath now. We were both like, got to do it in 30 minutes, motherfucker. Talk quick. Get it all out.
That would felt like the official press release or something, like the official press conference. You have a 30-minute time limit.
Right.
And we somehow hit it like right at 30 minutes and like 6 seconds or something. So good on you, and good on you for keeping me from rambling about like a CRT wall for 20 minutes. I could have accidentally done that, but
it's really exciting work you're doing.
Yeah,
man.
it's fun.
And, I think it's so cool. And I like, my background with artists and then looking after them, I can kind of appreciate this nuance that, okay, there's an artist and I want to have a particular look, or some don't care, some do care. If I was a visual artist who created something on a CRT, do I care it's the same model, or do I not give a stuff or whatever? So it's very cool.
I was thinking it's like if I guarantee you could find some guitarists that will tell you only one type of guitar needs to be used to play their song, right?
Yeah.
I bet you they're like, well, no, I won't even use a different type of guitar.
Yeah, or
to
amp
play,
or some other thing,
to play
or whatever
this
it might
song.
be.
No way.
Drums,
And so, you're definitely into some
Sure.
artistic, creative zone there. But
so what I wanted to, So I did this video, and I've had this cooking for a little while now, and it's all about these new cores. So getting S-video and by extension composite video out of the Mister. And I wanted to take a little longer here to explain the backstory about why we needed these new cores, what the new cores are, what do they do, and so forth. So Mister, all right, we know Mister. It's a D10 nano board, and then most of us know we put an analog I/O board on top of that, and that gives us the VGA style connector. And what those cores do, out of that comes RGBS, which is red, green, blue, and sync, which is is the best form of analog video, equal to component video. RGB SCART, or RGBS as it's called. The S starts for sync, not SCART. And component roughly equal in their ability to carry a signal, and done properly, they're equal, right? And that's what's coming out of those cores, and that's what makes you take that, you connect it up to your PVM, your BVM, and it looks beautiful and it looks great. So
or
then,
your later model CRT that
your later model CRT.
Yeah.
Of course. Here in Euroland,
video,
where everything has SCART.
Everything has SCART. Well,
then
in the United States, that's like, you go down to that older Trinitron or Toshiba JVC D series CRT that throws a component support in there.
Sure. So then the question comes, well, what if my TV only has composite or only has S-video, which would be the next on the down? If you go down in quality, let's say, they would be the next rungs down the ladder. How can I connect my Mister if I've only got an S-video or a composite? And I think it is the story, I believe, is originally I think the Sergey, the original OG creator of the Mister framework, he's had some philosophies around the cores, and he only wanted the cores to output what they originally should have. And if you look at the which I don't quite understand the nuance of that, but as I understood, that sort of meant that if the machine outputted RGBS, then it's going to output RGBS. Now, I know a lot of machines had a composite slot, so why not that? I don't understand that nuance, but it's some philosophical thing around the project. So up until now, the way that you've got S-Video and composite out of a mister is by using an external adapter. I have the adapter by Antonio Villena. Just a moment, it's right here.
Yeah, I remember this one. This was you had done a video on this one. And
so I've done a video on this one.
Super clean.
You needed some external dongle. Has your VGA there. Very good. I can't focus on it. And then on the other end, S-Video and composite right there. It has a little switch for PAL and NTSC because RGBS and component do not have PAL and NTSC. They are encoded in a completely different way. So PAL and NTSC is not a concern for RGBS and component. 50, 60 hertz might still be, but that's not technically PAL and NTSC. Now, S-Video and composite are affected by this NTSC or PAL thing going on there. So you might have had an adapter like this that could do it. There are other adapters, like one Tianfeng has one as well, that will, and this basically takes, this is not even Mister specific. It takes the RGBS and converts it to S-Video and component, and it does it just from a chip. I mean, there's just chips that do that, right?
Yeah.
And
so you could technically hook up, if you could get RGBS out into that format, you could use that to adapt any RGBS signal over to S-Video.
And I have. And I have some articles on the Cathode Ray Blog.com where I have some adventures in converting signals to RGBS. The only thing is that, and a little adapter like this, it relies on 5 volts on pin 9. And that's the 5 volts that's driving the converter chip that's in it.
Sure.
So I had to bodge in 5 volts. I hooked this up to a GBS control, for example. Works fine. I just had to bodge in
the 5 volts to
5
power
volts
it.
to make this work.
Sure.
Which 5 volts is technically part of the VGA spec. It's one of the later versions of the spec, but it's not like a super weird, crazy hack. It's a thing that... you monitor any monitor like after, I don't know, a VGA, after the CGA. Basically, any VGA monitor should be okay to ignore pin 9 and not worry about the 5 volts. Look, if you could... so those were there. Now, this is fine. It has the obvious disadvantage that I need to buy this, and this was... Yeah.
And
I can't remember.
I can't, it's one of those things that you look at and you're like, oh, that's cool. I want to go buy one. Oh, it's not in stock, right? I mean, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or like you say, you live in a different region where it's like
the irony for money. The irony for me on this one is this Antonio Villena lives in Spain, so it was a good price for me.
I'm sure,
but
yeah.
maybe not for you.
Right.
To ship it over to the States. But this was still, I want to say this is still like 50 euros by the time I got it delivered, right? And all that. And the one from Tianfeng is more complex. It's got more inputs and more outputs. So it's more money again because it's a sort of a different solution. Now, not only is this, I got to pay for this, the second thing is it hangs out the back of my Mister. So that's a bit of a,
I know that's the funny thing about the Mister. You can have all these it's almost like a sidecar. It's like, it's like the old school, awkward, ugly sidecar attachment sometimes. I mean, the good thing is that one actually looks kind of clean, but still, it's not. I
mean, I experimented a little bit with right-angled VGA adapters. I have some of those here. So you can run it like that.
Yeah.
And it just comes pull. And so it puts the strain.
It goes too far, doesn't it?
Straight down. Because the thing is if I do that,
that's so you got to have a balance support.
Right,
you got to build a little. You can take those old things they stick in the middle of your pizza box to keep the box from touching the center of the pizza. Just put one of those tables under it.
Now, notwithstanding the cost, and notwithstanding that it sticks out the side of your Mister, and certainly not saying this is a bad thing at all. There's an inherent problem with any device that is externally converting RGBS to S-Video and composite. And you might have heard it called dot crawl. Dot crawl, it's called, and it's your composite is not perfect basically, and you can see. I'm not exactly sure, but I think I view a lot of this on a BVM, which I think is very good at covering up some of these issues. So I know it's a first world problem to have with CRTs, but these devices, and not anything to do with Tianfeng or Antonio, inherently cannot create perfect composite. You might think like, but what's the deal? It's a better quality RGB. Why can't it create perfect composite? And I thought that too in the beginning. I have come to understand, the reason that dot crawl exists and the reason that those solutions are not perfect is because the conversion to S-video and composite needs to happen inside the device on the same electrical circuit. Because let's say if you open up a Mega Drive or Genesis, right? If you follow the traces, there's a VDP video chip, and it's sending out a pretty raw red, green, and blue in sync. It's not quite in the right. It needs a bit of shaping to the signal, but it's basically. And then the next part of the signal chain is a Sony CXA encoder chip. And if you look up the spec for that, it basically takes in RGBS and outputs composite and S-video. And you then say, well, isn't that the same fucking thing as what this does? The issue seems to come, and I don't understand why, but that's why it comes, that if you do that encoding on the same circuit board, on the same current or electricity bit or in the same thing, then it can convert it properly. But if you convert it externally outside like this, then that's where the dot crawl comes in.
It's introduced, but wow, that's very interesting. So, what, man, is it like? So is it possible? It's
a
many
timing.
different things.
It's something
it's
about
like
a timing
it could be that,
issue.
It could be like a timing, or it could be like even something as simple as like it not able to get the exact same perfect grounding maybe as the rest of the signal. Is like it's all grounded in the same way on this board, so externally, I mean, but you're still connecting to the same ground on that external piece. That's really odd. It's like an external factor that gets added, and then it's like it's impossible to find what's causing it.
Right. It's something. It was explained to me, and I listened to this explanation so many times before some vague explanation. So if someone is listening, if I am not saying the right explanation, please do correct us in whatever comment section that you're viewing on, because I don't want to say I'm the expert. I'm only so enthusiastic because this explanation eluded me for so long, and then finally a light came on after I heard it for the 20th time about why this is so. That to convert it, it's something to do with the timings, maybe a grounding issue, that you need to convert it to composite or S-video on the same circuit board that it's been generated by. So that's why out of your stock machine you can get really good, or the signal doesn't have this problem. So
it's funny, they've got their own problems on the board then. Because it's got, well, I mean, I guess that's what the RGB bypass has done, is clean that up.
Oh, right, sure. Yeah, there we go.
But you take that native composite video out of the most Genesis, it's going to have jail bars and all the issues that it has on its own. So it's like maybe you've eliminated all those issues, but by eliminating that, it's like the encoding. I'm guessing that this is only coming from a properly designed, output that comes off the RGB bypass, because the other stuff in the Sega Genesis is so crazy.
Yeah, sure. So assuming that your Genesis was already outputting perfect RGBS in that way and not having any other interference, it would still have dot crawl if you have an external solution to mix it together into S-video or component. So that was leaving everyone with the situation of, shit, how do we get perfect, or how do we get better S-video and composite out of the mister? So cue then the introduction and the work of Mike Simone. And what Mike's done is he's created specific forks of each core, like his own build of the Genesis core, his own build of the Super Nintendo core, of the NES core, blah, blah, blah. And he's he's updated those cores that they do the equivalent of the conversion to composite and S-video inside of the core already, which would be the equivalent of doing that on the inside
board.
the Genesis on
It's
the
gonna
board,
eliminate,
right?
Yeah, so it's eliminating your dot crawl problem.
Right. It's doing it
Awesome.
in there, coming up with it.
Genius.
Right. So right now there's still a separate build. Again, I'm not sure what this status is about eventually. I mean, he's still continuing on with his work. So this is still it's mostly there right now, but it's still a work in progress. We don't know yet whether this will be migrated to the original or the main cores or not. And so Mike's solution, he internally is generating S-video. And again, let's break that down. What does that mean? S-video is two signals, chroma and luma, as you know, Steve. And one luma is just your black and white picture. Yep. And chroma is the color that's essentially, more or less, laid on top of that. And the reason that exists is because of the switch from black and white TV to color back in the day.
Yep.
Originally, we only had black and white.
And the tubes only had the luma and a sync, basically. Yep.
So when color came along, they said, are we going to encode it in some new way that the old TVs can't understand? The idea was when they just provided chroma color as a separate signal, original OG black and white sets could still just read luma and work.
Right. It didn't affect. That's actually, right in the history of developing broadcast television, at least here in America. It was exactly the discussion that you're talking about, where
I feel like I learned that from your
it's
part of that.
It's part of that presentation that there was the changeover, and it was largely pushed by RCA had come up with this television, but it's like anything. Even though you might have the best television, how do you get people to appreciate that and replace their current television? And at the same time, when it did finally take off, how do you keep people from just throwing out their old TV and still having a use for it? So it was a brilliant move to keep it a way that they could still maintain the use of a luma signal. And like I said, the luma just has like the luma and the sync on that same line. So it's like
and then chroma is separate. And when they added chroma, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's when we had to start introducing the PAL or NTSC standards, because PAL and NTSC are about the color encoding, which is the chroma line.
That sounds. I mean, that's. Right? I'm not like. It's been so long since I've actually studied. Ever since I did that original presentation, and it's been so long since I've looked at the actual statistics because that was the only time I've really studied anything on broadcast television, the history of it. But that sounds about correct. So if anybody else knows any more and wants to add in the comments, they can. But they had, those are both color systems, and they were developed obviously for different regions and as a region standard, so that they could have a region standard, so that television manufacturers, they were taking, again, this was so new technology back then, they were taking these wild pictures and trying to make them all of a sudden color and over the air, come to your TVs. And it's amazing if you go back and look at some of those old pictures and those old tubes, they would get incredibly clear for just like over the air. I think that has a lot to do with what like Bob showed in his videos, where you live in New York City and you're getting so much interference nowadays. That wasn't around back in the 60s, right? Nobody had cell phones. Everything was hardwired. It was like ham radios and your TV and your AM radio. So that was at the time it worked perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but enough of a good enough that they had the industry going, and it was starting to make money. It was always on that edge of costing way too much, and the technology there, we can obviously tell from working on CRTs. It's like, if you make a bad batch of CRT tubes, it's a probably pretty expense.
Right. That's a good point that you made, actually, about the balance. So they're making these decisions, whatever it was, 70, I don't know, 80 years ago, whatever the fuck it was. And this balance of cost versus quality. Because you say, well, why did they even screw around with S-Video? Why didn't they just put an RGBS solution in? Because back then, S-Video, I mean, first of all, S-Video is pretty good. Like, it's really
it was a huge jump for us.
Good.
Like,
it's really good.
I'm trying to think of the first console I used S-Video on. I believe it was had to be the N64. I know it sounds crazy, but up till then, it was all either RF or composite on the Nintendo, on the Genesis, on everything leading up, Super Nintendo. It wasn't until I think that I remember doing that. Maybe like a Saturn too, same time period or something. I don't think I
ever used S-Video till I got into retro gaming. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know much about it.
Yeah, that was the best we got.
If I'm thinking back to when, when they were switching the formats. I mean, when they're going to color, it's like, why did they go for this Chroma Luma thing? Why not separate Chroma out into colors and all of that? That even to separate like S-Video, Chroma and Luma, it's really good. It's better than VHS. And we only got rid of VHS in the 90s, right? When DVDs started to come along. So S-Video was as good as we could record to with consumer formats until like the early 90s. Before then, it didn't matter. I've got this super RGBS solution to my TV, but your VHS is still low quality anyway. So what's the friggin' use?
Well, that's another thing. You know that they had like technological advancements on some of this stuff probably pretty early on, but again, there's no. This was a problem. There was no practical use for it, and it was so new at the time. That hardware was very expensive towards the end of the, 21st century. It was like, or that 2000-ish, that stuff started to really get expensive, some of the things. And I think that all contributed a lot of like really great ideas that were great technology that just didn't have an audience to pick them up and move. Because like you say, you could go and take that and have that awesome RGBS color and make it look glorious on a Dolby projector, right, in a movie theater anytime from the 80s on. Yet the home experience was always limited to whatever that was being ultimately shoved down the marketplace to, a VHS format, heck, even a laser disc. It was so hard to get the perfect combo with all that stuff for a high-quality experience that
Laserdisc is only S-Video, like a quality level.
It's actually just composite quality, and it's like one of the higher end composite video qualities. Now, I think you can do S-Video mods and RGB mods for some of them, but for the most part, it's like just composite. So,
well, it's because it's about what the laser is encoded at. I mean, I've got a VCR here that has RGB out. Doesn't mean it makes it look any better.
I've got S-Video out on VCRs, and they don't really look any sharper or anything. It doesn't tend to make any difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell, and it's not like the jump when you use a gaming console or any kind of core off the Mister, and let's not jump off that too much. Let's go.
Sure. So let's not go. So that's why S-Video. That's the history and the backstory of Chroma and Luma. These two signals, and so where RGBS is 4 wires, components
4 wires and 4 grounds.
4 grounds as well. S-Video is 2 signals and the 2 corresponding grounds. And if you look at the end of an S-Video plug, you can see there's 4 pins. That's exactly what they are. So the way that Mike designed his core was that it generates S-Video, Chroma, and Luma internally. And then basically what it's doing is outputting Chroma and Luma off pins 1 and pins 2, like straight out of your VGA slot here. So the job of using these new cores, if you want to get S-Video out, you basically need to find a cabling solution that'll grab pins 1 and pin 2 and shove that down an S-Video plug. And if you can do that, for S-Video, you don't need components, you don't need anything else. You just need to get pins 1 and pins 2 into an S-Video plug somehow. And that's what I'm describing in my video. I'm going through all the bunch of different options. Maybe you got a VGA to B and C. Maybe you got this adapter. Maybe you got that adapter.
I think my favorite thing that you mentioned was that you can go buy a small component and you don't even have to have any soldering equipment at all to do this. You can buy one of the, I didn't even think of that. You can buy one of those boards that you just screw in an exposed wire to. And the good thing about that is if something comes along, you could pop that open and tie in something else if there's a future development of some other cabling.
Right. So the simplest way, if you're a little bit electrically minded and you don't mind a little bit of soldering, is to get a VGA plug from your local electronics store and then just simply snip the end off an S-video cable, expose the 4 wires, and then just put them into a VGA plug, and then bada boom, bada bing, you have an S-video cable that will work with these cores with the Mister, and it's straight up as simple as that. And I love that it's that easy to do.
And you're not, and have you noticed, or do you think, I mean, have you seriously seen instances where you may have seen dot crawl on something yet and not really noticed it with this new solution?
Yeah, I looked, here's a little bit, again, my first world problem. My only S-video device
is a BVM,
BVM, which I know
I forgot. Yeah, you don't have it. It's like around here is like 100 S-video things.
So we're talking about filtering and all of that. The BVM's looking after all of that.
It's probably not showing it anyway.
There is some good. The guy that I'm referencing in my video, Twitter user QDA. He's and I'll talk in a moment about how to get into composite, but he did added the components that are needed to convert to composite, and he said, I mean, he's saying it looks rock solid, beautiful on a set. And I know also these cores are not quite finished yet.
This is all pretty darn
So I know Mike
new.
is still calibrating, let's say. So anyway, the next part of this is that, yes, very good. S-video is pins 1 and pin 2. But then you say, what about composite? Composite video is literally the mixing of chroma and luma into one signal that we combine.
Jamming it all down one line.
Right, you jam it in, and that's why composite doesn't look as good as S-video. Sync in there as well. Throw it in.
Let's throw it all.
Sync,
throw
color,
the kitchen sink, right?
right?
The sink in there too.
All these 3 things have to get jammed down one wire, and they're interfering with each other. There's not enough place for that information. I know I'm using very broad terminology there. Please, electrical engineers, don't get too upset at me. So that's why composite doesn't look as good, because it's all going over one wire. And if you want to think about the analogy of 2 pipes into one pipe, it's a good enough analogy to get you through, right? So the way that this happens is composite doesn't come natively out of the core. You have to mix chroma and luma yourself. And
right. So just a second. And you pointed this out in your video. The core has the S-video setting in it. Right. That's right. And then, excuse me, there's no composite setting in the core.
Correct.
The composite is done externally, yet this time it's not done on an encoder chip. It's just done by basically jamming everything. I know that also in the video, which we're about to get to, there were some components involved. I just wanted to mention, that is all you pick a thing on the menu.
That is interesting. Right. I hadn't thought about that quiet angle. So yes, first of all, when you get the S-video core, you have to turn that on in the menu, and that says, okay, now I'm going to be outputting chroma and luma from the analog IBO board there. But right, that is interesting what we said, coming back to our discussion about why is externally created composite and S-video bad because of the timing thing or something like this, that it seems it's not about creating the composite. It's about creating the chroma and luma in the first place. Seems to be the problem there. I would surmise from what this solution is. So we need to mix it externally, and you can do that literally with a Y cable by twisting 2 cables together, by just bodging any sort of way that you just twist or bodge or run a wire across that can electrically combine them together. That will do. It will not be perfect by a long stretch, But if you just need to get your Mister connected to composite, you can take pin 1 and pin 2
and just get it, and
it'll work, and it'll show, and it'll work. It's got rainbowing effect. It's not, the colors aren't.
Yeah.
So you can definitely see the rainbowing in it. I'm not. You might even not like it very much. But
so then you're tuning that signal before it gets to the set, right?
Right. So the solution to this is that you need to add 2 components to the Luma line before it's mixed. One inductor and one small capacitor. One small capacitor, one small inductor. You add them to Luma before it's mixed, and that does the correct filtering, and then they mix together, and then a perfect, or as close as we're getting out of this solution, composite signal comes out. So composite's a little bit harder to make yourself. I mean, not that much harder, but a little bit.
No, I tell you, that is a perfect kind of, like, if you're in this hobby, you own a Mister, and you're looking at small projects to do for like getting experience with soldering. What a perfect example. Go and spend the little bit of money to order the parts from like Mauser, get experience doing that, or DigiKey or whatever, and then making this thing. That's what I love, is these smaller projects that like before, it would have been way more complicated before these cores existed to do really this kind of adapter, because we just saw Antonio Villena, he had to have an entire encoder chip on his.
Right.
And it's got an entire, and then again, if you expand it out more into T's design board, you're getting into more complex stuff. And even if you did buy those parts, you'd have to solder little tiny pieces on the surface board, but not this. This is like perfect example, because you could even make it as ugly as possible. It's your own adapter. It's a test adapter. Perfect example.
Something to learn. Yeah, it's a great point. It's really easy to make. It's really basic soldering. I'm not good at the soldering. I make these ugly ass adapters. We've been through this little motherfucker enough times to know that I don't make. That's
the famous adapter. That actually looks good. I don't know. You're giving yourself. That's not. Trust me. If you looked at, like, I went back a few years ago and redid like my first consoles, and it's like you open it up and there's a whole nest of wires, like just like what planet was I living on where I thought balling up like 50 yards of wire was a good idea. So
it's a good project to do. If all of this is way too confusing, or if it's not something that any of you want to do, when the cores like finally release version 1.0, when Mike sort of says, yeah, I got it all, he's already got designs for PCB-based dongles that will do all of this, the filtering, the combining, and so forth. And I think he's got some, I'm not entirely sure. I know Mike's got some. I know other people are working on them, that they'll plug in on the VGA, and some just have S-Video, and some have S-Video and composite on them straight up, so you can just plug in. Now, and then you might say, well, what's right? The question is, like, how is it different to this adapter, for example, from Antonio? Because it's a little bit smaller, but cheap.
Because it doesn't have to have a PC. I mean, it might have a PCB in it.
It'll have a PCB, but it's just a PCB, a couple of parts, a plug. This should be, I don't even want to say,
well,
$10,
even
$20 or something,
and you could make it a version. I bet you could even, again, there could be a DIY kit for it that would be super cheap. If that was even put together for you, it would be cheap, way cheaper.
So I imagine that this will be easy enough, and because it's so easy, relatively easy to make, that means a number of creators might pick up on that. So you might have a number of sellers, number of options in your local area, or one guy's got all sorts of stuff hanging off, or another guy's just got really the most bare bones one that only costs $5 or something. So when the cores finally hit, I expect after a little while, part shortages letting us know that some pre-rolled dongles should be coming for this, and that I think that might be my ideal solution in the end. Although I was about to create my own S-Video cable, and that might be my.
There's I don't know. I think you could find a situation where maybe just the cabling like your own custom cable might be the best solution depending on what you want to do.
I think so. Just for
and
the
I think that's
video.
more fun, maybe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
The
some satisfaction.
Yeah, the thing I'm wondering
Mhm.
is if in the future, and this is I have no idea about coding anything, but if you've already got the cores developed where you've got this S-Video Chroma and Luma mode now in it, right? What if there's another mode that is the composite mode that somehow sends out the tuned Luma and adjusts that Luma signal to just send it out already tuned, and it already does that and combines it on maybe another pin on just on the thing, or again just leaves that part alone. So I don't know. That's the cool thing about Mister is you're like, wow, this has gotten to this point. You never really can tell. I mean, it could not. It could go there eventually, or it could just stay where it is, and that'd be fine. I don't know. Maybe there's an issue, but
That's a cool point. And I wanted to get Mike on the podcast. That we've got to and just have a chat. And, what an interesting dude who's created this stuff. And I think it's a really valid question. Is there some technical reason, or did he just sort of think like, is it just the scope of decided at first I'm going to make S-Video as the scope of the project, and then later on down the line?
How much work did it take to get to the S-Video point? And is it like, you really just can't do it for composite video, or is it, it needs its own entire development period, whereas the S-Video is ready to go? We should just do it now, have it out there, and not wait till it's all perfect, right? So I don't know. That'd be an interesting question to ask.
So I'm a fan of this. I ordered all sorts of different cables from AliExpress to check them and try them, and I kind of sat on this for a few weeks, and then they finally arrived, and I went, "Oh yeah, I should make that video." And you know what came to my mind? I should make that video before Lou from Lou's Retro Source gets on this topic. I got to do this. And then Lou wrote to me and said, I'm making one of these too. You got it out first. And I'm like, I love Lou. He's a great guy. I love his videos. So he said he's got one coming as well, which is going to be diving into the same topic in different directions to me. So, and he's like becoming so prominent. I'm like, I'm glad I got mine out first, because as soon as he's doing great.
Some guys just get going there, and it's good.
So that's what I've been looking at the last few weeks. That's
a lot of fun. I'm glad that you got to keep up on that, because I've been out and totally missed basically all that. I've got it, and maybe after this museum job, I'll finally just buy a second Mister to have, because I don't want to take mine in the machine. I don't want to take mine out of the Mister cave. So it's like it's all hooked up there, and it was meant to be set there. Like I got it by Discord. I was laughing because Dan Mons was in there like cracking jokes about how I'm the only guy that's been admitting to running all this Ethernet cable through my house. Everybody else is like into trying to get wireless solutions, and I'm like, no, baby, I'm going.
I want the cables as well.
I want cables everywhere.
Now you've got Retro NAS. You don't need to double up on your ROMs. Second.
No, I know. So
I'm wiring mine in. My Mister is kind of floating. I set it up when I need it, but I'll plug in the Ethernet to it directly. And
I really need that thing for more like video stuff. It's so handy to have there. And now, like you say, the fact that if we could easily start pumping S-Video and composite out of it, and not have dot crawl added. And then, I mean, for me, it's going to be especially better to use for testing little consumer sets, because like you said, that's like 90% of these CRTs that are, I mean, the majority of the ones I like, some of them only offer composite. It's so you don't even have S-Video, a lot of them. So it's going to be a big cool thing to be able to do that. And not only that, like I've got composite matrix switches here that you could send to that and send that signal to all types of composite displays. So
I can imagine that would help you, because I mean, I know you've got Genesis and they're all very good, and
but I've got to sit there and pull all the power supply out for something different every time, pull out a different controller, and then sometimes you get in there and then like the connectors wear out on the console, because I'm put way more wear and tear on my equipment than normal people would, because they usually set up their stuff and leave it alone. I have to set it up, use it, test it, shoot it, tear it all down, and box it back up.
Literally.
Yeah, there we go. So that it's not like, oh, I mean, I don't box it up, but I put it on a testing shelf. But I have to do that with every one. Whereas if it was just a mister, then the testing shelf would just turn into a display shelf. And then,
Right.
I'd only need the mister for doing all that. And it's getting to the point where, yeah, it's almost like ignorant and silly on my part to not buy another one just to make life simpler on myself.
Yeah, because you can guarantee out of the mister that is the best quality video, that it's not your Genesis failing, it's not the interference coming from something else. Like when you're getting that signal out, it is the best quality that it could possibly be.
I can't tell you how many times I've, well, for example, I got the darn, I did that GameCube mod where I got the digital GameCube, and I went and I plugged my Insurrection Industries cables into my BVM the other day, and then I'm like, this doesn't look right at all, and the red's gone. And I'm like, is something wrong with the tube? No, I pull up the test patterns on the actual board, and the tube's fine. But yeah, just randomly, I don't know what happened. The red went out on there, and I can't get the thing open without destroying
on the mod.
it. No, not the mod, from the cable, because then I went and I bought the second set of cables that just came out. Like they're like $60 from
Retrobit?
Castlemania. Yeah, they're those new Retrobit ones. And of course, they work. So it's like, yeah, something happened in the cable. But that's the whole time I was thinking that. And the reason, but the way I figured it was just the cable is I used the second GameCube I have that has digital out. And it was, it would work on analog, but not on digital. It wouldn't show red. So I was like, well, the cable's crapped out on me after just like 10 hours of use. And so I don't know what happened there, but
that's a good point for you. You're testing, you're working.
You waste an hour trying to figure out why your red signal just went out on a console just for a test shot. You're like, this was supposed to be. That's always the worst ones. This was supposed to be an easy project. That's always the worst ones. They always turn into way too much. You know that.
Yeah. So that
you spent a lot of time. I wanted to say, man, I really loved the new edits you were throwing in there, and
thanks.
I feel like you're doing awesome of like coming into your own groove here with your videos format and things, and it's like I love seeing that. So I hope everybody else. I think the people who watched it really enjoyed that too. It looked like you had
I hope so too. Hey, speaking of that, because this video that I did more B-roll, and I just sort of did more voiceover-y thing for it instead. And I kind of recorded the voiceover first, then I put the B-roll. And you've always got that thing of like, oh, do I have enough B-roll, and where do I get it and match up? Lou, I've been emailing Lou from Lou's Retro Source, and he gave me this really great tip. He said what he does for his productions is that he writes the script, and then he gets like an AI-generated voiceover. And so he doesn't have to read it. He uses the AI-generated voiceover to create an AI voiceover. He then puts the B-roll all over it. And then the last thing that he does because when you stick some B-roll, you go like, oh, yeah, I needed to say this here, but I didn't say it in my original thing. So he uses a AI voiceover, does the whole video, and then as the last step, records the voiceover, and then inserts that into the done product. And I thought, that's a pretty nifty idea. I was going to try in the future.
Yeah, man.
And no, it's not your style. I like your style.
I don't know.
You just
it's
sit there and you talk it through.
No,
it's
good. It's like there's like a lot of things because I've had, there's not the video making it rarely turns into a perfect situation. A lot of times when I'm working here in my own environment, it's very controllable, so it's very easy. If you could get, I love my basement because the audio is always good here. It's like so much crap for my voice to bounce off of. It's not echoey or anything. So it's very easy for me to go in the shop there, do some things, record it, have some audio, take care of that whole section. But then, like, I came back from my trip, and one of the things I did was I kept going to Goodwill, the same Goodwill that I featured a couple times on my channel. And a lot of times I'd get nothing, but the other times you'd go in and they don't care if you film, but they're playing like cheesy 90s background music at an insanely high level. So, you're definitely going to be having music in the background and all these crazy conversations. I couldn't believe it, dude. No, like the last time I walk in there and there's new people working at this store. And this guy, he's explaining to one of the other workers, he's like, yeah, I used to work at that store, but they had to close it. And the girl was like, well, I always wondered why they closed that store. And they said, yeah, they had a lot of problems with hookers and homeless people hanging out in the changing rooms and the bathrooms, and they'd either be doing drugs or they'd be like turning tricks in the Goodwill. And I was like, no, seriously. I was like, I didn't think that happened, but yeah, I was just listening, and I was just like, you can't capture this moment, like the audio portion. I can't go like talking to myself into the camera. Hey, ho, look at what I found. Oh, look at this thing. And but I found, I did find an interesting way I was going to do this one, where I've gone through and I went through and I just picked up items, kind of looked at them. And I went through the game section. There were tons of Xbox 360 games this time, tons of them. And I picked up probably like a dozen that were ones I hadn't heard of, or ones that are, they have to be worth more money, a certain level, and to buy them. So I basically went in and I found like itemized. I've gone in and done my style where I found sold listings for each item. Like as I pick it up, I'll flash over to like an eBay sold listing to say how much it sold for. Did I miss out? Did I do good by not buying it? One of the things I looked out and found was like a Sony Bravia TV. So I found like the original specs on the TV and the original MSRP. And then I did like an inflation calculator. That was like just all this stupid.
How much were those Goodwill selling it for?
$20-$30, I think, $29.99.
Yeah, about what around here I'd paid that for a Bravia as well.
Yeah, and it's like, so it's stuff like that. And
did you get that camera? Tell us about that. Did you get that that disposable camera? Not disposable,
yeah, it's right here.
The Polaroid, sorry.
I forgot I brought this out. Yeah, so here's what I got, this cool thing.
Dope.
Polaroid one step, dude, and it's in like super good condition.
Yeah, it looks
$3 works.
$3.
Like everything on it, like seems to work fine. It's not even that dirty. But I was like, where the heck do you test it? How do you test a battery? Because I couldn't remember. That's where the film goes in. But not only the film, the film packs are the battery. Like, see this right there, the 2 points.
Yeah.
That's your battery. It's like a flat, old school battery at the back of this cartridge. So that's what, like, I was like, what? So you can't even test the power functions of it without a fresh one of these. These still are made to this day. Okay. And I was telling Lewis this is the curse of testing old equipment, because this thing was full of just crap. And I was like, oh, maybe if I just clear out all these photos, it's like a cartridge and I can get it to power. No, it's all junk. It's like it's like a printer cartridge, almost like ink cartridge. So I got on Amazon and I ordered a 2-pack of this shipped to me for $50 US. And that's a total of 16 pictures. I get to take 16 pictures, and if it doesn't work, then I'm just like wasted it. But I just couldn't believe it. Like, pay $3 for the camera.
8 pictures per cartridge.
That's what it says. 8 pictures, I believe, per cartridge. Yes. So I believe that's right. That's one of the fun things I'm working on. I'm going to do a video for sure on that thing, because it's just so. But not just this thing, because this accompanies an attachment that I will go get real quick here in a second. It's something that Bob left with me, and it's going to be the funniest thing because it has a Polaroid mode, and it's another thing I've been teasing a little bit on social media, but I've been saving because I found this camera and I was like, this is too good. I have to try to recreate this.
Okay,
so let me go grab this thing. It's an attachment for this.
Is that I wonder if he's talking about the CRT, that cone that goes over CRTs to film them. That's the thing he's talking about. That's interesting. Those batteries, like, do they just have just enough power so you can squeeze out 8 shots with like 2 coin batteries? Yes.
All right.
I was just saying to everyone, it's the cone. Yes, it's the cone.
I swear this is not a barf can. Okay? Check this out. Some genius thought this amazing contraption could be used to photograph a TV screen.
Tremendous.
It's called the screen shooter. The screen shooter. Okay? It's called the screen shooter. And I think I've laughed with you about this thing before because it's made by the NPC photo division screen shooter. So if you like try to Google NPC photo division screen shooter, you're not getting this to come up. You're getting like stupid stuff of like Modern Warfare screen shooter, man. Get the FPS, NPCs.
FBI
man.
are going to show up in your door. You start Googling that too much.
Right. So the hilarious thing about this is it was designed pre-digital camera. I don't know how I must have let a fly in here. But if we look up here, it's got a Polaroid one-step like setup on it. That's what this whole mounting contraption is, where you mount the Polaroid, dude, in this thing like this. And it's somehow supposed to give you a clear Polaroid shot.
Bring it to the center. I want to see the shot in the center.
Yeah, let's see.
Show us the shot in the center. Around where your microphone is, because that's... Oh, yeah, screen shooter. Yep.
See how it says there's a 35 millimeter mode, and then for the Polaroid one-step camera, it's actually meant for it, which is insane.
And that is a Polaroid one-step. So you found that exact...
Yes.
I see why you would wanted to pay $50 for 16 shots as well.
So this is going to be, so somebody's going to get to see. I'm going to just laugh if this, like, I can get like 20 amazing Polaroids of a CRT, which I just cannot see that happening. But we will see. I've also got some old 35, well, I mean, they're still digital, but they're like early 2000s, mid 2000s cameras that will sit up there and do like the other kind of mode. So... But that's the most exciting part was that hopefully this camera works and then we'll be able to Polaroid
LGR eat your heart out. LGR's done this, has he? Yeah.
No, that was like oh my goodness. So like Bob, he showed up with all these gizmos and this was one of the things I've just been like, when am I going to use this? And this is too perfect. Like the whole I don't even care. I was thinking about the 35 millimeter camera. I don't even care about that. The whole thing would be the Polaroids. That would be like the best of all. So
that's so perfect, that moment. And did that moment twig in your brain when you were at the Goodwill and you saw that and you went, oh,
well, yeah, but also
this is it. Yeah.
But also it's like it's a Polaroid. And I'm like, man, there's no way this thing probably works. And then I was like, wow, that you can still get the film. So we'll see.
Cool,
I mean, it's going to be
really
if
cool.
you start seeing like if you start following me on Twitter and you see like pictures of Polaroids, it
can't be
you
long.
know something's happening. No,
so
it's coming. Like the film's coming either today or tomorrow.
Oh, fucking American Amazon does everything so quick. Here I am waiting weeks for my crap. You know, I still haven't. I'll tell you about delivery here, right?
Yeah.
Wii Sports, not Wii Sports, well, Switch Sports, right? I keep calling it Wii Sports. Got released on Friday. As most people will know, Friday the 29th was the release date. I pre-ordered it from my local electronics dealer, selected the delivery option to a local locker. We got a locker down the street where you can get deliveries.
Okay.
I thought the way these things work is that they send them off like a day before, so you get it on delivery date. That's the way I thought that often pre-sales for games go. I was wrong. I was so very wrong. They didn't even ship it till yesterday. It was released on Friday.
They let the whole weekend go without shipping it. Yeah.
I'm like, that's why I fucking pre-ordered it, you bunch of bozos. So I can, I'm pre-ordering this. So they don't even ship it till Monday. I haven't seen any updates yet in my SMS about when is it actually getting to the locker. Maybe tomorrow, the better part of a week. Euronics Estonia, you bunch of bozos. Or maybe it's me. I should have
No,
selected
man.
the pick up at the
Hey.
store option.
You have been out there as the face of Estonia, trying to get people to invest in Estonia.
Yes. Invest in proper fucking delivery, guys.
And now they're letting you down.
Yes. So I should have known. I know how these things. I should have known that I should have selected pick up at store option on Saturday when I was driving around, and I would have already had it. So mental note: don't get anything. Nothing. Even stuff that is already in the country will not be delivered quickly to you around here.
Yeah. Here was a weird thing. I've been, now I've been getting used to. I don't know if I told you, we had talked about this years ago, but I have, since about 2001, been wearing pretty much only the Rod Laver Adidas sneakers. If you
talking about this, yeah, okay, and I didn't even know this was a line.
And I've been like buying them. Anytime I see them in my size, I would buy them. And this last year, Adidas finally redesigns the Rod Laver, and they have a new design of it, and it's supposed to be this sustainable design. But I bought one of them, and it looked like the complete like cheapo Walmart knockoff fake version of the shoe. It no longer says any labeling on it. It feels light. It was just garbage. So I was like, I'm not keeping this. So I returned it, and I decided to buy some old Reeboks, and so I was like, oh, I'm finally switching to Reeboks here for Pete's sake. So I bought some Reeboks. They shipped them to me, and of course I have no idea what my size is because it's a different shoe. And I'm like, I haven't gone like to. You can't just go to like a shoe store anymore, probably, and like try on sneakers very often and find something you want. So I'm sitting here ordering a shoe, sending it back because it doesn't fit, and they send me another pair, and in that process, they lost like the shoes for like 2 weeks. And then here you'll get the weirdest stuff. I got a notification, oh, your shoes have arrived. And it was Easter Sunday in the afternoon during a snowstorm that happened like here in Virginia while I was in Tennessee. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like this, there's been no indication of this showing up anywhere. And all of a sudden the new shoes have been delivered on Easter Sunday. It's not that important. They don't need to be taking like holiday pay to go deliver my shoes. They could have waited till Monday. So, yeah, you never can tell, man. It's like, even here, I would, the thing that just sucks here is there's just not as much store presence of items you're looking for. You can't just go out and find stuff you're looking for. So you do always have to order online. We're just more fortunate to have, I don't know, ungrateful American attitude. And
is that the way it works?
I
mean, is that shopping now is you buy it and you return it? Like that seems to be much more part of the workflow of shopping these days. Like my girlfriend all the time is buying stuff, 5 things from H&M, but then 2 go back. And like that's normal. Like they
don't even have
that.
like I went in before this trip. I bought the shoes. I had to go buy some new pants. I mean, I haven't bought any jeans in like 5 years.
I love it.
So,
you're such a guy.
Yeah, so I went to, and of course, what did I do? I go to Costco because I'm like, Costco has everything, and I'm like, oh, $14 jeans, yeah. And so, of course, you have no idea what your size is, and I'm like, oh, I haven't stepped till I went home to my mom's, and I haven't stepped on a scale to see how much I weigh in probably 2 years. So I was like, I don't know. I think probably I've put on some weight from the last time, which would have been like 230. So I'm like, maybe I'll be a little over that. And so I buy these jeans that are like way bigger than I should. Like I get home and they're like the Jared before and after or whatever, he's probably not a good example anymore, but the before and after photos of the fat guy,
touch the kids,
of the fat guy who has the big pants on. That was what I was looking like. And so I had to go back 2 or 3 times, like you say, and just change them out. And I was like, nope, they still are not, because they don't have changing rooms. So you have to buy
in Costco. Okay.
And you buy them, and then you go and switch them out, and just have to try them on at your own house. And then so I figured out my size, and I just bought 3 pairs of the exact same jeans.
That's it.
They're there. I haven't even taken off the labels on one of them, the tags. I'm like,
that's
no,
what guys do.
We
We find one thing and buy
a
that.
bunch
I
of
only
it.
want. Right, I can't order online. Like my girlfriend's like, "Oh, you want something? I'm making an order." I'm like, "No, unless like I know my
Unless I
size
know
in
what it is.
Levi's, I know my
Right.
size in Nike shoes. Otherwise, I can't. It's too much anxiety for me to think that I'm gonna get it and then send it back. And
That's
and then I've
not
gotta go
fun.
the effort.
Sending
No, I
it,
don't wanna.
even sending it back, it's like I still gotta. They take care of all the shipping for like returns for things like sizes. If you do that,
okay,
route.
you get a bag usually or another label
Well,
or whatever to send it back.
But you still got to go. Yeah, take it somewhere and drop
Right.
it off because it's not the normal mail. It's a carrier service, so you've got to go down the street and find somewhere to drop it off. So
I would have thought Costco. Like I watched that video. It was a great video about
That was
Costco.
a hilarious.
You sent me.
I was like, how did this show up in my feed? It just knows I've been to Costco so many times.
I've never been. I think maybe once I went to a Costco with Dieter in Atlanta. I can't even remember. But from what I understand, those things are so big. There must be like some corner or like a pile of soda that you could hide behind to try your jeans on or something.
There
like
is, man. Oh yeah, you could do it like that, but then you. It's so
Costco's at least you're not
such,
turning tricks in the
such a-
Costco.
It's
Doing
such
drugs
a,
and turning
it's such
tricks
a
out the back.
strange place sometimes. I'll be walking around in there, and it's mostly like retired age people, because I mean, let's be honest. Who the hell? I mean, I'm just in a fortunate situation where like I can buy stuff in bulk, so I will, and I'll go in there and buy deals. I mean, if there's something that goes on sale, like I bought a huge, really nice blower fan that not big, but this two cube, and it's this complex blower fan for like with plugs in it, and it's grounded rated and all this for the shop that sucks air and moves it, and it also can force blow a lot of air onto CRTs if I want to like dry them out or shell parts. And so you go in there, and that's normally like a $90 thing. They sell it for $75, and then they'll mark it down for $50 just for like a month. And you're like, oh, well, I don't really need it, but I'll go ahead and buy it. So it's like me wandering around this store with all these other people like running small businesses and trying to like stock their store out of Costco. And then it's just like the funny people who have their membership, and they like to like walking around at Costco is like a status symbol to them. And then you look at their cart, and all they've got is like toilet paper and water bottles. And you're like, yeah, okay. And they're just like walking around with their whole family having way too much fun. You're like, whoa. So they must be on like that little path the guy was talking about where you go try all the free samples.
Yeah.
Free samples, yeah.
So you have the card, and it's got a little bad picture of you on it.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I want to see this Costco card. Yeah. Oh, hot damn.
Gold
okay, that's the
member.
front.
Let me make sure I
is
don't
there
show
some-
my member
Oh,
number.
the hacker's gonna get into that.
It's actually color now. Look at it, dude.
Oh, look at that.
So there's my little gold star in my.
And you have your hot dog whenever you go there as well.
Oh, that's Actually, I was laughing with my wife because, we didn't really get into it. We don't have to talk about it now. We can talk about it more some other time. The rest of the trip out to California, but on the way back, I ate in this freaking diner. Before I got on the plane to come home from California, I went to this diner, ordered this dog awful country fried steak. Do you even know what that is, Lewis?
What, okay, steak. I understand steak. It's fried.
It's
in
not
the
real
country?
steak, man. It's like fried in the country. Yes, okay.
Like a bad bit of meat. Is it at least meat?
It's so it's supposed to be like a skirt steak or something, or like a
cheap,
cube
real cheap
steak,
bit of meat.
cube steak that's in a patty and tenderized, and then they batter it a few times and deep fry it so it comes out looking like a piece of like KFC chicken. Okay. And it's called country fried steak, and then they smother it in sawmill gravy. Have you ever heard of that? It's the white. It's like this country white gravy. The color's white. It's thick.
Okay.
Creamy.
It's a white gravy.
It's got
creamy.
generally spiced with pepper, so you see pepper dots in it. And then, so there's that, and then there's a bunch of other stuff on this platter I order. I gobbled this thing up, and then got to the San Jose airport, and man, like just. It did not sit right with me. It stayed in me the whole flight back to Nashville, But like 3 a.m. that morning, after being off the plane for 2 hours, I just like lost all of it and got a pretty bad battle of food poisoning for 2 days. So I didn't really eat anything, and I was really proud because I told my wife, I said, I went to Costco and I'd actually have expelled so much like poison from my body in the form of food. I was like, I think I'm over the hot dog for a little bit, as opposed to, I was like,
enough.
I felt like I almost went through like a detox cleansing, right? And now I don't. I'm looking at, I've been eating a lot more of my figs and like, dates and apricots and all these nuts, and then like water. And now I'm like, I just don't have the same desire, at least right now, to go start throwing that stuff back in me. That's processed food yet. So I have gone back a couple times and not gotten a hot dog recently. But that's the best deal.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Well, it is that the way they keep it at $1.50. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Once you get sick. Oh, we're cooking on there.
Yeah, so that was all fun, but the thing I know this, so I go to a small diner all the time in my hometown, and you got to have a simple rule, man. Stay away from the fryer, okay? A lot of these places have terrible fryers. Get whatever you want that's cooked on the griddle. So like eggs, bacon, meats, most of them that are just straight griddle stuff is fine. But whenever they dip something in that fryer, man, it's like you don't know when they change that fry grease.
It's like oil from the 70s.
Yeah,
there.
and they're like laughing at you because it's like they pull out the fry trap and there's like a rat from 1992. Throw him out. Throw in your country fried steak and
right.
silly old Tennessee boy.
But that you didn't heed that advice in California, though.
I don't know what I was thinking. You know what it was? It was too much of that. Whatever. California weed out there that they like, give like you're my family member. Oh, God, Lewis, I'll tell you one little story here. My sister.
We're at the bottom end of the podcast.
Yeah, bottom end. Let's finish this here. My sister comes and she's staying with me, and both my sisters are staying with me in this big house for my brother's wedding, and she comes in with this bag of just, 1,000 different things. I've never even seen this kind of stuff before, and it's all supposed to be marijuana products, right? And it's like, she's leaving and going over to the campground is where the wedding was and all the party stuff. So we leave, and she's like, "Here, I want you to have this," and it's like half a cookie. It's not even a whole cookie; it's half a cookie, and she's like, "Yeah, this is pretty strong, but you'll probably be fine." I eat this thing, and I'm sitting there, and they leave, and I'm waiting for my family to get ready in this car, and I'm like about to start hallucinating, like from this cookie. Like it's all of a sudden I can't breathe, and I'm like, lungs, work lungs, and then I'll be like, they'll breathe out. And I had to sit there and think that, like, the whole time. The rest of the time I'm going in, running into the bathroom, like, turning the lights out and on to make sure my pupils are working, And then I'm like, my wife's like, "You ready to go to the campground too?" And it's like driving through the mountains, like, California mountains, just crazy hairpin turns at 50 miles an hour speed limit, supposedly. And I'm just like the whole time, I'm like, "Don't freak out, don't." And I'm like the whole time, like, I'm about to tell her, I'm like, "I think I need to stop and you should drive." Because I'm like, and I'm like, what in the world? And this was like, I took this, my sister gave me this cookie much earlier in the day. And I'm like, what is it with this cookie? And yeah, it just, it had a bad reaction. I don't like the edible stuff anymore.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, no. So I luckily calmed down, but yeah, it was just like, it was not anything like any kind of mellow weed experience I'd ever seen. I was like, man, this California
they've got
stuff
that good
is not,
stuff there.
Yeah, it's like all this crazy stuff, and then these stores, and they're like, "Oh, and it looks like kids packaging almost, It's like
Yeah,
They're going to get themselves in trouble with that kind of stuff. I know it. Marketing things that look like a pack of Skittles.
Bro, I haven't smoked weed now for 3 months. Since before I went to Australia is when I stopped. And every night I still want to have a smoke. Oh my God. Every day is a struggle. And like I want to do shit like I just want to go for a weekend to Amsterdam. You think I can go to Amsterdam without just spending the whole time, on planet Jupiter? Not a chance. But I just want to go and hang out for a weekend, but I can't. I don't even know what to do. When does it wear off? When do I stop feeling this want for it? I realize I'm describing the mindset of an addict right now. I'm going deep into it here, but I just I really want some. I've managed to not have some. I don't know whether I can go back and have like a good relationship with it or not. I can't even go to Amsterdam. Man, where can I go? I can't go to, if I go to America, everywhere it's going to have. I'm going out tonight. I know my friends are going to have it. I'm like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, it's a trouble. It's troublesome. I always have this kind of, I like it a lot. So I don't, but it doesn't ever, I don't ever get to the point where, if I feel like fully, and outside of that cookie, I can't remember any time I felt like weird off of just taking, and that's why I usually will only just do old-fashioned, just smoke a little bit stuff, and this other stuff is just crazy though, because it's like these vaporizer things that my sisters got there. I was like, what in the world is all this stuff? I was like, this is like synthetic stuff. I was like, it's like, this is you're getting so far away from what I'm even thinking. It's like there even is this just completely different product. And then, but it's a struggle, man. Cause like anytime you like feel like there's, it's such a thing that's not, if you use it and if you've used it regularly, it's not something that's like going to get you crazy drunk or something. Yeah, sure. It's like, but at the same time, you do have a possibility of becoming just the guy on the couch from every 90s stoner movie where you just sit around and do nothing.
That was my problem a little bit. Like, I'm talking about what's the issue. Like, especially here, the thing was, it was the middle of winter here in Estonia, living on the outside in the countryside of town. It's minus whatever outside, snow's falling, and you smoke.
Nothing
Guess
much
what?
to do. Yeah.
I ain't going out. Guess what? I'm not going out at the best of times. So, that in that environment, right? Was making me certainly less social. So who knows? Maybe I can do again. But I mean, I'm drinking more, so positives.
Yeah, right. That's what. Well, that was the fun. That was the other thing. Yeah. See, like my, I've had people I've had one of my siblings almost kill herself with alcohol. She's only 30 now. She just turned 30, so she's like, I was talking with my mom and my stepdad about it kind of, and I was just like, the difference between how someone can go out and just be 21 years old, at least here in America. I don't know how it is. Obviously, different places, it's probably younger than that. But you can go out and get something so powerful that it could literally like kill you. But you could get like as much of it as you want. And like, there's no limit to how much you can get. There's no limit basically to what you do with it. You could literally go to a store and buy as much liquor as you want, and that had literally, if you did drink it, it had the potential to just poison you to death. Sure. Yet at the same time, you got these other things that's treated like it's way worse for at least here for a long time. And then now it's kind of come to a point where it's flipping from that. But I was always bothered that people would be so easily like against weed, but have no problem drinking all the time, and then doing really irresponsible things, like even stuff that you would never accept, like driving while you're drinking or something. That's just, unfortunately, here in America, like there's a problem with people driving and drinking a lot. And it's, I know that like other places, I've talked to Bob about this, because other countries, it's very taboo and very, very, very like against, like you would, your neighbors might come out in other countries, find out you did that and like beat you up for it or something, because it's like such a dangerous thing to do for your neighborhood or anybody.
Right.
But here at the same time, you'll read articles about somebody in town getting arrested for the 8th time with a DUI, and they are repeat offenders most of the time, and it's just they just pay enough money, do their little time, and get their slap on the wrist almost, and then they're right back behind the wheel of a car here, and there's no, so it's like, you know, but at the same time, there's a whole plethora of people that can use it properly and enjoy it and not go to an extreme on it. And so, you know, addiction,
you got to regulate yourself. And that's all
really
things
it.
in life. Like, where is that? How much is the government going to regulate us? And how much are we going to regulate yourself?
This took a weird turn, Lewis.
I'm climbing up the walls, but I made that choice myself, right? I made that choice to, you know, to pull it away. So
no, it's all, and it's all, again, everything is individualized. I can tell you that from my experience as having my sister go through that, and like she went to hardcore rehab. They didn't get, you know, they were like half chance she lived, half chance she didn't. So I've got another friend that I grew up with as my best friend growing up, and his younger brother was best friends with my brother. So he was at the wedding with me and with my brother, and I was talking to him about his brother, and we haven't talked to him because he basically became a junkie, and like from a nice, grown up in a nice suburban home in Tennessee, was provided way more growing up than I was. His parents weren't divorced. He had younger siblings, 3 of them, that all did successful things in life and have families now. Yet he lives behind a Popeye's chicken in a sketchy area of Nashville because there's a homeless shelter that will let him do his laundry there and take a shower once a week. And I was like, what's the situation with him? And he's like, the last time I heard, my dad was asking him, what, is there not anything in your life that you want to do with yourself? And he said, what am I going to do, Dad? Like, go out and cut people's grass and weed eat for somebody for $10 an hour when I could go stand down there by McDonald's and hold a cup and I get $20 an hour. And I was like, what? And he was like, I'm sorry, man, but we're just all kind of waiting. I know my parents don't want to hear this, but we're all just waiting for the call when he's going to die. He's already got like hepatitis. Sure. He's already got from sharing needles. He's got all kinds of problems. It's also, and with him, it started with alcohol too, where he took it to an extreme when we used to party in school and high school, and then he got to college and never really could differentiate that, and like flunked out of school and college pretty quickly, and went to drinking beer every day, and just living that, like lived in a rented apartment, you know, with his kids' brothers who were going through college, and just paid the little portion you have to rent a room in an apartment. Drink that all day, and then he drank himself to where his liver shut down. And so he was already high risk from that and had to go multiple times for liver treatments. And then, like, my other friend and I went and picked him up one time when this first happened, and he was just like, you know, a bloated fish from all this drinking. And we were taking him to go back to our hometown, and like, we're just trying to talk to him. We hadn't seen him in a while, and that's all he was like, oh man, you guys got anything in here that can get me fucked up? And you're just like, what, dude? It's like, no wonder your family wouldn't come pick you up. And then, like, we're trying to pick you up and you're asking us this stuff. We're not giving you anything. I was like, no, man, if we had anything, we wouldn't give it to you. And it's just, it's so weird how you can grow up with people, and it's almost it seems like there's one person that's going to just unfortunately take the wrong turn. You don't know who it is.
Yeah. And the tough part is that I fear that with some of these things, look, I'm no psychologist, but these things can just be in a person. And do you have access to weed or drugs or alcohol or something? Like, they will find something. If there is some issues they have, some maybe emotional hole or emotional difficulties, they'll find something. And, you know, you can say like, well, don't legalize the weed or maybe restrict the alcohol. I mean, ultimately, as human beings, we have to hold back ourselves now, because I also don't think that heroin should be legal, for example, either. No, okay, there's limits to all things. So where are those limits? But ultimately, it's
you could
It's
have
the humans.
you could have a food addiction.
Right.
It could be anything, and it's just bad
could
for
be.
you. It's obviously a coping mechanism. There's somewhere where he couldn't deal with some situation in life, I'm sure, like that started him on this path. And now I think he wakes up, tries to get high. There was a portion in this guy's life where he almost got straightened out. He went to a halfway house, lived there clean for like almost 6 months, and then just one day did something, ran into somebody, got high. They kicked him out right away, and he's never gone back to being having any desire to be straight again. As far as, and when I say that, I mean like as far as not fall into the drug addiction lifestyle again. So it's a weird situation. I don't think there's that many situations, at least in my life, where you have like siblings that are friends with the same family members, close, and you're like, it was so weird. I was kind of talking to my wife. I was like, it's such a weird thing to see, like my brother and him have the relationship that I used to have with his older brother, and it's like now we're older adults, we're all here, yet he's not here, kind of, and it's just the way. I'm sure everybody has somebody in their life that has had something like this go on, and it's just, I don't know. The more you get older and seasoned, seeing this stuff, I think it takes a different kind of toll on you almost. But
Sure.
you almost
can't
feel
tell how people are gonna
you
turn
feel
out.
way more worse for like people in a sympathetic way, I feel like, than before. When I was younger, I would have just been like, screw it, he's screwed up himself, he's screwed. And now it's just like I feel pain more than I think about it. It's no longer like anger of anybody being like, oh well, he just didn't, or something. You lose that kind of emotion, I feel like, and
I
get
think that's
more
nice. Empathy. That's what you're feeling. You feel empathy, which means that you feel this person's struggle and you feel this person's pain. And I think that's the tough part about. I think one of the things about this modern world that we live in, because we are so hyper connected to everyone around us, to the million Twitter feeds a day, the rush of information that comes, and that means like all stories all around the world, everyone's sob story, everyone's hard case, everyone's struggle gets just fed at you at this feed, and we lose the ability for empathy. And I think that's part of it. You just see so much struggle every day. Of course, you're going to zone out, and I think it's a positive in a negative situation for you, that it's human, that for you it means, guess what, Steve's still there. He can feel that, he can
well, and there's it's like
empathize.
Empathy and sympathy are important. I think you're right. We're losing a lot of that kind of stuff today, and it doesn't make it any better too when all you do is get online, and most of the time you're just seeing the best things of you're seeing the best part of everybody's day scoped in their best light. Okay, right? Because even if it's that's all it is. It's the best day of someone's, or the best moment of someone's day, maybe a complete negative. They just figured out a way to spin it into a positive for a social media post, and we can't. Yeah, you got to kind of get out, and I think that the last trip I just took, kind of unplugging from things for a little bit, getting back to some reflection of almost like a time when we grew up, going back with like friends from the past, where those were all friends. This is again pre-cell phone stuff, so you almost fall back into the kind of ways that you were back then. And I feel like I remembered feeling that. This is kind of like silly. I remembered feeling more sympathetic maybe before. Like you say, you're constantly inundated with numbing stuff all the time. And then a lot of vitriol and passion for other things. And it's just like, it's always high emotions, right? And it's never, it's hard to find a moment to just relax and calmly take the situation in and think for a second, like quietly think, that's like such a different thing. That's just not, it's nothing you can do online really. So
I'm trying something that I remembered about myself that I certainly haven't had enough time for myself recently. And I took a little trip for 2 days. I was going to Riga because Riga in Latvia, it's the country below, and we're doing some shows, and I had to sort out some stuff for some projects down there. And I got 2 days away. And, for those 2 days, I just worked on 2 projects. I didn't context switch. I didn't change. I just focused and worked with my colleague for 2 days on 2 projects. And it was amazing to just focus. And I realized I can't focus on one thing at home. There's too many, look at this room. There's too many distractions. There's too much cool shit hanging around here. How can I? So actually, I'm trying to use this as a technique in my life. So this Thursday night and Friday night, I'm taking 2 nights away for myself again. We were talking about earlier your work, consulting and doing work in these new directions. You want to take your business for that. I am also trying to take my own consulting and my own work with helping with communication and leadership that I do. I realized eventually that was such a big project in my life that I need to take 2 days away and just think about that for 2 days. And that doesn't mean like 24 hours a day. I'm like, I think for an hour, then go for a little walk and chill out a little bit. And then think for an hour and then go for a little walk. And I need to devote 2 days to just think about that. No other bullshit distractions. And then I can get a plan. And then, okay, I'll be my regular distracted, but at least I'm working at that plan. So yeah, Thursday and Friday, I'm going away just for that purpose. And I'm trying to identify the things in my life that I'm not moving on because I'm being a bit of a slacker recently. And I'm trying to find those big things that I need to move on and then just go away for 2 days and think to myself, how the fuck am I going to move this forward? You have nothing else to think about besides that for 2 days. Let it happen.
Yeah. And I think that the awesome thing, and that's awesome idea. I commend you for doing that stuff. The good thing is you're going to sit there and you'll come up with some brilliant ideas, and then you'll come up with some okay ideas. But the good thing is if you take the patience and have the time, it's not just whatever the first idea that's probably feasible that came into my head that might be executable, or it may come with this challenge that we're talking about. You get a distraction happening that's going to be involved with this particular idea that you weren't seeing or something. And so the idea of having a little bit of time to reflect and then slowly I think it's just like something you completely miss, the going out, having a silent moment of non-distraction, not being pulled away from the topic. How often and how nice is it to be able to focus on one thing and just not even allow yourself to be pulled away from it by, I don't know, what if you turn your phone off or something, or turn this, say, could you call me right now? I'm not answering these hourly block. So
I feel you, because I'm not even doing that. Like at nights, I have a real struggle to turn off my phone. A real struggle. I don't want to come out like I'm some prince on this. Like
no, I learned a long time ago. Yeah. I silence my phone at nights because
definitely that.
In my old business, I would get these people that worked the night shift, and they would call me at like 3 a.m. asking insurance questions because that's when they're normally up, and then I was like, they're trying to get to the answering service, right? But so I was like, I have to remember to turn my ringer off, or I'll just get woken up at 3 a.m. from a phone call, and I'm thinking it's like somebody's house is on fire because that was insurance, so you don't know. You're either getting a call from somebody on third shift or somebody with a real problem. So, that was like the trip I went on to, and then where my brother got married. It was like a Indian reservation park, and there was no cell service there, and none. And it was brilliant because I was I left my phone at the Airbnb pretty much, or in the car, because I tried to use it for a GPS. But that other than that, it was just not anything that was even usable other than a camera. So I feel like too that can be such a productive thing that you get to a point where it's hard. I told you this, it's hard to come back from that and actually get back into letting things. Then you're like, all right, now I'm going back to my regular environment, like you said, where you've got all the cool stuff. You've got the ability for people to interrupt you, and that's kind of it.
I haven't even opened today I was working on, what was I working on? I was working on some programming stuff and I was going deep into it.
I was wondering what you were talking about. You're like, I'm deep into some coding right now. And I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah. Because when I code, like coding can really focus me. And I mean, I'm working on some absolutely stupid stuff. I'm working on, for our website, our Comedy Estonia website, we're importing Facebook events. So we make the event in Facebook, but then we still have a list of events on the website. So there's a tool that will go to Facebook, look at all our events, and then import that information to the website. And as Facebook changes, now there's recurring events and now there's different things. And but it's helpful. The tool works fine currently, but it's something I can just hyper focus on. And I remember my good old programming days, and I'm not distracted for a few. Yeah, you can get that deep focus that just like we were talking about, can be just not even like, does it help me? No, just the act of doing deep focus for a while can be refreshing.
No, it does help you. It's brain challenge. I mean, right? Sure. It's like you can sometimes get into something that you haven't used in your brain, a function, like a system that you haven't used in years, and then you use it, and it feels good. You're like, oh, wow, that actually still does work. It's like riding a bike for the first time in 20 years or something. So,
all right, we got an hour and a half.
Man, I can't believe the last 40 minutes of this went really weird.
We got deep. One for the fans. One for the fans.
There you go. So you either got some therapy, maybe laughed, cried.
The whole thing.
Love us, hate us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
for following through. You got the whole technical discussion, then you got the deep philosophy. We got it all here in the Cathode Ray podcast. So we're going to work it out. We'll end this one, and then we'll talk about our next episodes. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Follow us, CathodeRayBlog.com. Check out Steve Retro Tech for his channel. Thanks for watching Zez Retro. See you next time.
Adios.